When you hear the name Frankenstein, what's the first thing you picture? Is it a huge green-skinned guy with bolts sticking out of his neck? Well, what if I told you that's not Frankenstein at all? And what if the real monster in the story isn't the one with all the stitches? Let's get into the real story behind the legend. Okay, so first things first, let's just clear up the biggest mix-up right away. The creature in the story, he actually doesn't have a name. Frankenstein, that's the name of his creator, the brilliant, driven, and deeply flawed scientist Victor Frankenstein. The Green Giant we all know is a cool piece of Hollywood history for sure, but it's just not what Mary Shelley wrote. See, Mary Shelley's masterpiece from 1818 isn't some simple monster movie. It's this incredibly tragic story about creation, about rejection, and about the massive responsibility that comes with playing God. It all kicks off with this young scientist who does the impossible, and in his biggest moment of success, he's just completely horrified and disgusted. So this creation, who is smart and articulate and so lonely, is cast out and shunned by literally everyone. His desperate need for some kind of connection just sours into this deep desire for revenge against the one person who made him, only to then deny him any kind of love. And that sets up the big, haunting question of the whole book, the one we're really going to dig into. Who is the real monster here? To answer that, we have to start with the creator himself, Victor Frankenstein. Because this isn't just about a guy who's curious about science. Oh no, this is a story about a massive ego, an obsession that goes way too far, and a catastrophic failure of basic human responsibility. And you know, Victor's own words right here, they tell you everything you need to know about his motives. He's not dreaming about helping humanity. He's dreaming about a new species that will bless him. This isn't about being a father, it's about wanting to be a god. He wants all the power and all the glory, but none of the actual responsibility. You can basically see his whole downfall mapped out right here. I mean, each step just flows right into the next. It starts with this pretty noble curiosity, this desire to learn the secrets of heaven and earth. But then at university, that curiosity just curdles into this dangerous, isolating obsession. His ambition gets totally godlike. But then look at that final turn. The moment of creation is instantly a moment of revulsion. The thing he works so hard to build becomes something he can't even stand to look at. And this, right here, is the absolute core of the novel's tragedy. Victor's biggest sin wasn't that he played God. It was that he ran away from his creation. The very first thing the creature ever sees is the back of its creator running away in terror. That single act of abandonment, rejecting his child at its very first breath, is the spark that lights the whole tragic fire. Okay, so now we're going to flip the script, because for a huge chunk of the book, we're not following Victor. We get the story from the creature's point of view, and I'm telling you, his story is one of the most heartbreaking things you'll ever read. You can see his journey here, and it really starts from a place of total innocence. He's basically a newborn, learning about the world by secretly watching this kind family, the de Lacys. Through them, he learns about language and love, and he starts to feel hope. But that hope is just completely shattered the second he tries to make contact. Their violent rejection teaches him the only lesson he ever seems to learn. To people, he's always going to be a monster. And this line? Wow. It just says it all, doesn't it? In his own beautiful words, he tells Victor, "I should have been your Adam, your prized creation. But because he was rejected, he's become Satan, the fallen angel, kicked out of paradise for no crime other than just existing." When you get right down to it, all of the creature's violence comes from one place, an unbearable, crushing loneliness. Every single time he tries to connect with another living thing, he's met with screams and violence. He doesn't actually want to destroy things, he just wants to be loved. But when that's denied over and over and over again, all that sorrow just curdles into this murderous rage aimed at the one person who started his suffering, his creator. So this brings us to what really drives the whole story forward, this vicious, escalating cycle of revenge that completely swallows both the creator and his creation. And you can actually break this structure down into a really simple, memorable little framework. We'll call it the ARC of destruction. It all starts with A for ambition. That's Victor's desire to be a god. That leads directly to R for rejection, the moment he abandons his creation, which is really the story's original sin. And the whole rest of the book is C for consequence, this brutal, nonstop cycle of murder and revenge that just consumes them both.
And what's wild is that as this cycle spins out of control, Victor and the creature basically become dark reflections of each other. They're both completely consumed by the same obsessive need for revenge. They both end up totally isolated from the world. The creature systematically destroys everyone Victor loves, and Victor, in turn, abandons his own life to hunt the creature to the ends of the earth. They become two halves of one self-destructing being. And this promise, which is really a threat, is the chilling peak of their war. After Victor destroys the female companion he was making for the creature delivers these words. And it's not a threat to hurt Victor physically, it's something so much more cruel. It's a promise to make Victor feel the same exact, agonizing loneliness that he's been forced to suffer. Now, all this might sound like an old Gothic horror story, but its ideas are shockingly modern. So why does a novel that's 200 years old still feel so important? Well, because the questions it's asking have never been more relevant. This isn't just a story, it's a warning for all time. Honestly, you can make a strong case that Frankenstein is the first real science fiction story. It's basically the blueprint for almost every story we have about the unintended consequences of technology. It literally created the template for our fears about science going too far, way beyond our moral limits. And this is its central, enduring question. Victor Frankenstein proves that what we can do with science can race way ahead of our wisdom to handle it. His story forces us to ask, where do we draw the line? What are our responsibilities for the things we create? I mean, that's a question we're asking right now about AI, about genetic engineering, about, well, you name it. Just think about it. The ethics of creating a sentient AI without thinking about its rights. The real-world consequences of judging people based on how they look, of turning people into outcasts through prejudice. And maybe most of all, the absolute responsibility of creators, whether you're a tech CEO or an artist, to own the impact of what you put out into the world.
It's funny, Victor himself actually spells out the big lesson in a rare moment of self-awareness. He warns that any pursuit, any ambition that makes you less connected to other people, that weakens your affections, is dangerous. He calls it unlawful. It's this powerful lesson that when you let ambition destroy the very things that make life meaningful, you're on a very, very bad path.
Okay, so here's a little detail that's actually a huge deal. The book's full title is Frankenstein, or The Modern Prometheus, and that subtitle is everything. In Greek myth, Prometheus stole fire, which is a symbol for knowledge and power, from the gods. His punishment for it was eternal torment. Well, Victor steals the secret of life itself, and he's punished with the complete and total destruction of his own. And get this is the part that always just blows my mind. Mary Shelley was a teenager. She was just 18 years old when she started writing this absolute masterpiece. She had also recently lost her first child, and her own raw, complex anxieties about being a parent, about creation, and about loss are woven so deeply into this incredible story. We've looked at the creator, we've looked at the creature, and we've talked about the book's timeless warning. But all of it, all these different threads, they all come together to point to one central, powerful truth about being human. So if you take only one single thing away from this story, let it be this. The true horror in Frankenstein isn't what the creature looks like. It's Victor's absolute failure to love. The ultimate tragedy of the story is that monsters aren't born, they are made. They're made by cruelty, they're made by prejudice, and most of all, they're made by the absence of love.